Hello there, pre-matriculants. Welcome to Educate. In this video, we'll be continuing with our biodiversity of plants activities. Today, we're doing this activity from the GIT exercises 2025. It says here the diagram below illustrates different plants. So now, getting to the activity, we're going to start by answering 2.1. It says identify the group to which A and B belong. So basically, you have to identify each and every division that you are given here. You know that in plants, we have got four main divisions: division bryophyta, division pteridophyta, we have got angiosperms, we have got gymnosperms as well. So here, just by the look of things, you must be able to identify that A here is a bryophyte. How do you see that A is a bryophyte? Of course, you can see it's a structure, it's just a normal moss, okay? This is how a moss looks like. When I made a video about bryophytes, I think I mentioned how a moss looks like. This is the structure, all right? So the moss basically is a bryophyte. So the division here is bryophyte, but this is known as a moss. The actual plant is known as a moss, but the division is bryophyte. Is a bryophyte. Then when you look at B here, you can see that B is a fern. This is how a fern looks like. So the actual name of the plant is known as a fern, but we say that it belongs to the group of what? Of pteridophytes. It's pteridophytes, or it belongs to the division Pteridophyta. And then when you look at C, there's something that you can observe there, right? When you kind of zoom into C has got these things that look like cones. These are actually cones, all right? But I just want you to see it yourself. These look like cones, okay? So this is actually a pine tree because it has got leaves that look like needles, okay? That's a nality. So it's just these leaves that look like needles. We say these are the pine leaves, okay? So the name of this plant is a pine. So this is a pine plant, or it's a pine tree, but basically we say that it belongs to the division Gymnospermae. So basically this is the gymnosperms, okay? So gymnosperms, and then you can see that D, it is represented using a flower. So those are the flowering plants, right? So those are known as the angiosperms. So this is very important for you to make this kind of analysis. Although some of you might feel that I'm wasting time or whatever, you can skip parts of the videos, but basically it will definitely help you. Starting with 2.1, it says identify the group to which A and B belong. So A is a moss, it belongs to the bryophyte, and then B is a fern, it belongs to the pteridophytes. So the reason I gave you the name of these plants is so that you can make sure that you understand that the actual plant is known as a moss, but it belongs to the bryophytes. The actual plant is known as a fern, but it belongs to the pteridophytes. So the group to which a moss belongs to, it is the bryophytes. Or you can say it is a division bryophyta. So you can say bryophytes, this is A, and then for B, you can say it is pteridophytes. This is B, pteridophytes. So you can write it in your own way. Of course, you can say that a moss belongs to the bryophyte, and then B, a fern belongs to the pteridophytes. Then now when you go to 2.2, starting with 2.2a, which of the four groups between A, B, C, or D are dependent on water for fertilization? So basically, remember that we do have got plants that require water so that fertilization can take place. Otherwise, without water, they wouldn't be able to fertilize. And we know that it is the divisions A and B, which is the bryophytes and the pteridophytes. The gymnosperms, they don't require water because they have got cones, they have got seeds, right? And then also the angiosperms, they have got seeds and fruit, so they don't really require water for fertilization. Because if you take a normal plant, let's just say maybe maize, if you take some maize and then you take a seed of maize and then you plant it in the ground, it will definitely grow on its own. You don't really need water for the fertilization. You only need water for it to grow. So basically the bryophytes and the pteridophytes, those two, they actually require water so that their gametes can be able to do what? Can be able to fuse so that fertilization can take place. Alright, so those are the two groups that depend on water for fertilization. Not ukuthi the gymnosperms and the angiosperms, they don't depend on water at all. They don't depend on water for fertilization, but otherwise for a plant to grow you need some water, right? But basically for fertilization they've got their own seeds and they've got pollen and whatnot. So for A and B, we're gonna say that A and B, those are what? Those are the groups that depend on water for fertilization. So it's 1 mark each here. That's your 4 marks. Then now when you go to number B here, it now says, which of the following 4 groups produces seeds for reproduction? Remember that the seed-bearing plants are collectively known as the spermatophytes. So the spermatophytes are those plants that are able to do what? To produce seeds for reproduction. They don't require water for reproduction. They use their seeds. We've just mentioned them, that it is the gymnosperms and the angiosperms. So you won't write gymnosperms and angiosperms because here they've said which of the 4 groups, A, B, C, or D. So you must answer using the letters provided, not what you know or what you want. So C as a gymnosperm and D as an angiosperm, those two, they do what? Those two, they bear seeds. They are the spermatophytes, so they bear seeds so that they can reproduce. Now let's try to do this explanation question. And this explanation question says, explain how the dependency on water, so how the dependency on water for reproduction is reduced in the group represented by C. So C, we have already said that is a pine tree, so it belongs to the gymnosperms division. Yeah, the division Gymnospermae. So now they say we want to explain how the dependence of on water for reproduction has been reduced. We are trying to explain, we'll say, why does the gymnosperms, or why do the gymnosperms not require water for what? For fertilization. Because I've already said that C and D, they don't require water for fertilization. The first thing that you can mention here, you can mention that the gymnosperms, they produce seeds. They don't require water. They don't require water for fertilization because they reproduce using seeds. So they produce seeds. That's the first thing. So you can now answer it and say gymnosperms. So the gymnosperms produce seeds. But you are not yet done. This is 3 marks, remember, right? So the gymnosperms produce seeds. But now let's now explain what these seeds, they don't really require water so that they can fertilize or anything like that. The seeds don't require water. How do we prove that? Let's just shift our focus to this diagram that I've attached here. So this diagram here, it is showing pine seeds. So let me just kind of zoom it in. So these are pine seeds, or these are the seeds of a pine plant or a pine tree. A pine tree, which is this gymnosperm. Look at the seeds. The actual seeds, it is just this part here. These are the actual seeds. But you can see that the seeds, they kind of have got these structures that look like they can fly. Honestly, guys, you can see that this looks like they can fly, right? I mean, if you were to suspend them in the air, these seeds would be able to fly a big distance. Not would they actually fly, but when there is some wind or when there is some air, these seeds are easy to disperse. Please watch my video explaining division Gymnospermae so that you properly understand that these seeds are adapted. The pine seeds are adapted to just be easily dispersed by the wind. So when the wind comes, these seeds will be easily blown away and they will be able to go to another cone. Okay, so now let's further explain that these seeds, gymnosperms produce seeds, and these seeds are which are adapted. So we say they produce seeds which are adapted for what? For wind dispersal. For wind dispersal. So we can see that here the gymnosperms, they've got seeds. Okay, particularly the pine seeds, basically the pine seeds, because we're talking about C, which is a pine tree, right? So the pine seeds, they are adapted for wind dispersal. It simply means that they are easily dispersed by the wind. So when the air comes blowing around, they can easily be dispersed. So which are adapted for wind dispersal. And then now Now let's just finish up our statement, because we need to kind of explain the reproduction of gymnosperms so that we can prove that it doesn't need water. Okay, for you to prove something, you need to kind of explain how it happens. In this case, we want to prove that seed does not depend on water, or its dependence on water is reduced. So for you to prove that, you have to kind of explain how do they actually reproduce if they don't require water. Okay, so these seeds which are adapted for wind dispersal, they are what? They are fertilized in the female cone. So I'll just say which are fertilized at the female cone. Okay, which are fertilized at the female cone, or you can say in the female cone. So basically, when these seeds are dispersed from the male cone, so the seeds are produced in the male cone, and then they have to be dispersed by the wind. So they are blown away by the wind, and those seeds will now go into the female cone. So they come from the male cone, the seeds are produced in the male cone, and then they are transferred to the female cone. And then when they reach inside the female cone, that is where fertilization will take place. Yes. So once fertilization takes place, it means that those seeds are ready to just be grown. Those seeds are just ready to germinate if you put them under the soil. All right. Those seeds are ready to just grow into plants. You don't really require water for the fertilization process, because the gymnosperms, they produce seeds, and then these seeds are adapted for wind dispersal, and then those seeds are going to be fertilized at the female cone. That's going to give you a full 3 marks, because we have briefly explained this does not require water, because we can use wind to just blow away the seeds from the male cone to the female cone. Now let's look at 2.4. 2.4 now says list three similar structural features of the prothallus in ferns and the gametophyte in mosses, which make both to be poorly adapted to a terrestrial life. If you didn't read this question carefully, most of the times you're probably going to misinterpret it, because you know that pteridophytes, they can survive on land. Pteridophytes can survive a terrestrial life better than the bryophytes, but here they say the prothallus in ferns. Now let's explain what's a prothallus in fern. I've just made a diagram that will be easy to explain the prothallus in ferns. Look at this. This is the prothallus in ferns. When you say that there's a prothallus in ferns, it simply means that this is a young fern. I mean, like when a fern is not born, but when a fern just germinates from its spores, it looks like this when it's so young. Let me just zoom it in so that you can see it. So before it becomes a fern like B here, you can see that at B here, it's a fern, right? This is a full fern, the one that you are used to seeing out there. But now before it becomes like that, it starts as a smaller fern like this. We call it a prothallus fern. If you didn't know this term, know it now. We call it a prothallus fern. A prothallus fern is actually a gametophyte version of a fern. When you say gametophyte, simply means that it's a small plant. I'm sure the gametophyte is a small plant, and when it grows to become bigger, it will become a sporophyte. Yes. Gametophyte simply means that it is still small. It's a small plant. It is still producing gametes. And then when it grows, it will become a big plant. Like you can see here, B is a fern, is a big plant, and that is a sporophyte. But when it is still small, it is a gametophyte. That's what gametophyte generation and sporophyte generation means. So when a prothallus fern, it is still young, it does not have true roots, because it's still small. Here you can see that it's very small, right? It does not have true roots. It does not have true stems, because it's very small. Look at it, guys. It doesn't have true roots. It doesn't have true stems. It doesn't have true leaves, because you can see that these are not really leaves, right? So this is how a prothallus fern looks like. A small fern looks like. So now they are comparing the prothallus fern to a what? To a gametophyte in mosses. A gametophyte in mosses, you can be able to see it just from this diagram A. The gametophyte is just this lower part of a plant, the smaller part of the plant that doesn't have the true roots. because this A, you can see it even has got a sporangia, a sporangia here to produce some spores. But basically, you know that bryophytes, they've got a small gametophyte generation that is most dependent, that is most dominant. So here they say list those three similar structures between those two, which make them to be poorly adapted to live a terrestrial life. A terrestrial life is just the life on land. So basically, this prothallas fern, this small fern or this prothallas fern, it cannot survive to live on land. As well as this gametophyte. Okay, let me just highlight for you the gametophyte part so that you see it. This lower part of a bryophyte is known as the gametophyte generation. Yes, the gametophyte generation, before we developed this thing. So this upper part, I will highlight it in green. This upper part is known as the sporophyte. Let me just label it so that you get reminded. This is the gametophyte. When talking about the gametophyte, it is just the early stages of a plant. When it is still young, it still produces gametes. And then when we talk about the sporophyte, this is the top part of the plant whereby it is now able to produce some spores. It's known as the sporophyte generation. So we are comparing this gametophyte generation to this prothallas fern. We are listing their similarities that make them not suited to live on land. First of all, let's just talk about their similarities. You know that bryophytes, since the gametophyte generation is dominant, they are actually thallus, okay? They do not have true leaves, they don't have true stems, they don't have true roots. That's the first thing. Okay, so the first thing is that both of them are thallus, because this prothallas fern, I've already told you that it's still small. It doesn't have real roots, it doesn't have real stems, it doesn't have real leaves, because it's still so small. So it's more like this is a what? This is a thallus fern. That's why they call it a prothallas. The prothallas simply means that it is a fern that has not developed yet. It is still young. It doesn't have true roots. It doesn't have true stems yet. But when it grows to be a big fern, a pteridophyte, it now has got roots and that. All right. So here we can say that both of them, they are what? They have got a thallus body plan. So both of them, they are thallus. They don't have a true roots, true stems, and true leaves. And if they are thallus, they cannot survive on land. How can it survive on real land if it doesn't have true roots? Okay. Because remember that their roots need to be able to penetrate into the ground so that the plant can be attached properly. So basically, the prothallas ferns, they are thallus, as well as the gametophytes. They are also thallus. Well, we already know that the bryophytes are thallus, right? So basically, it's common. It's a similarity between them. What else? The prothallas fern, it is still so young. Since I've already said that it is so young, it means that it doesn't even have true roots, right? We know that inside the roots, we often find the vascular system or the vascular tissue. The vascular tissue that we've got a xylem and a phloem. Those are the tissues that are responsible for transporting water to the what? To the plant, so that the plant can grow. So a prothallas fern, it is still young. It does not have true roots. You can see, guys, I've zoomed in million times so that you understand here. This is a prothallas fern. It doesn't have true roots, so it cannot have a proper vascular system. And also a gametophyte in mosses. I'm sure they say here a gametophyte in mosses, meaning that a gametophyte in bryophytes, it does not have true roots, so it cannot have a vascular system. So basically, they don't have a vascular system. That's why they cannot survive on land, or they are poorly adapted to survive the terrestrial life. So they don't have a vascular system. They don't have an actual or a proper vascular system. We are comparing the prothallas fern here, not the pteridophyte that you are used to. This is a fully developed fern, the one in B, but the smaller version, when it's still small, it looks like this. Then the third characteristic or the third similarity between them is that you can see that they are so small, right? Yes, they are so small. The prothallas fern is so small, Okay, so it needs to be it's closer to the land actually, so that it can be able to get water easily. You can see that it's in a wet environment. You can never see this in a dry environment. You can never see this in a terrestrial environment. All right, so basically they are small as well. They've got a small size, or they are closer to the ground, so that they can be able to get some water. So you can talk about their small size as well. So all of these characteristics, all of these three characteristics, they make these two to be poorly adapted to live a terrestrial life, a life on land, like dry land, the land that we are living in. Yabo. So basically, we are comparing a prothallas fan. A prothallas fan is simply a small fan, a smaller version of a fan, or it's a gametophyte of a fan. Simply that. Please watch my videos, guys, as I explain this. I hate repeating the same thing. 2.5, let's go again. Now, when you go to 2.5, it now says, explain how the presence of flowers, have allowed for a greater diversity and abundance of angiosperms. Remember that angiosperms, they use these flowers as reproductive structures. So the fact that they are flowers, it has led to an abundance, meaning that there are many angiosperms, and a diversity, meaning that there are different forms of angiosperms. Why is that? Simply remember that there is sexual reproduction. The angiosperms, they kind of go through sexual reproduction through pollination, right? Through pollination. So basically, if we take a flower, let's just say this flower is a red flower, and then we take a blue flower next to it. So we have a red flower, and then next to it, there is a blue flower. If these two pollinate with each other, they are going to form another new color. It's just an example. Okay, so if we've got a red and a blue flower, and then they pollinate with each other, a cross-pollination, then we're going to create a new flower. So you can see that now we are creating more different versions, because diversity simply means that there is a variety, or there is a different thing that is being made. Okay, so what is allowing that is the flowers. The flowers go through pollination. That's the first thing that you can say, that the flowers in angiosperms, the flowers undergo cross-pollination. Why did I mention cross-pollination specifically? Is because, you know, when you're taking a flower that is different from another one, and they are pollinating with each other, we say that's a cross-pollination, right? So flowers undergo cross-pollination. So this is going to allow them, allowing them to develop or to form different embryos. Okay, you can say varying embryos, just to use my kind of English. But basically here, what am I saying by this? I'm trying to say that the fact that angiosperms have got flowers, if we take two different flowers and then we cross-pollinate them, they are going to create a new thing. So that's now diverse, because diverse simply means that we are creating new things. I mean, let's just say we only have got blue and red flowers in the world, only blue and red flowers. We don't have anything else. The moment these two cross-pollinate, they create another new flower that is different. If we take red and white, they can create pink. Okay, so flowers undergo cross-pollination so that they can do what? So that they can develop varying embryos. Hey Lapo, I know that you've been enjoying this wonderful video, and most likely you've been enjoying watching this handsome face in front of you, but sorry ladies, I'm taken. I just here to tell you that Educate is on the road to 100,000 subscribers by the end of 2025. So please click the subscribe button and click the notification bell so that you get notifications whenever I post new videos. I want you guys to pass. Okay, so if you make my dream true, I reach 100k subscribers, I will make your dreams come true. I will even get you to varsity. I will get you with 7 distinctions. Yes. Then now 2.6, you will do it on your own. They say tabulate. When they say tabulate, you need to be able to draw a table. So you are going to draw a table and you are going to state 4 structural difference. You're gonna state 4 differences in the structure of what? Of group A and group B. So you are comparing group A, which are the bryophytes, or you can say the mosses, and you're comparing them to group B, which are the pteridophytes. So what are the core differences between them, or what do you know that is different about them? I will leave that to you so that you can complete that exercise. If you don't complete that exercise, it's your own choice because you are going to write the exam. I finished grade 11 many years ago and I'm living a rich life now. So it's your choice to answer the questions or not. But if you have got suggested answers, make sure that you comment them below and stay tuned for our next video.